I put all this material together and I produced this book, which is open access, by the way.
Yeah, that's amazing, by the way. I love that. So you can legally download it.
So this is slightly going on a tangent, but I'm very passionate now about the phenomenon of open access publishing because so I've set up this series called Cambridge Semitic Languages and Cultures, which is based here in Cambridge. And you can, we can search it on Google, and you can be having our series is growing quite rapidly. There's a lot of stuff there on Hebrew, Masorah, and Nikud, but the point is that it's freely downloadable, or if you want a hard copy, it's quite a cheap sort of low cost.
But why is that so important? You said you're passionate about it.
I know, but dissemination. Because I came to realize that academic research, academic books in publications, academic publishers charge exorbitant prices for books, which means that not even the academics themselves can afford. They have to. They can only read it if they have access to some rich university, whose library will buy it. Now, I
have a colleague in Greece who's very learned. He's done postdoc in Greek manuscripts, and his university can't afford a lot of these databases.
Yeah.
And he'll write to me and other scholars and say, I'm trying to get a hold of this article. Do you have access to it? Because I don't. And, maybe this is even cliche to say that, the person who's going to cure cancer is working in a rice field somewhere in Asia and won't have access to the, PubMed to make the breakthroughs that humanity needs. It really is a problem.
But I mean, if you just focus on our own field of Hebrew Semitic studies, I mean, what I've learned is that in the world there is an incredible number of people who are hungry for knowledge, academic research.
Yeah.
It's not only scholars in the top universities; it is a large amount of humanity. In fact, this book, for example, we have in our series, we have metrics that show how many times it's downloaded. It's been downloaded nearly 12,000 times.
Wow!
Across the whole world. I mean, across the whole global South.
That is amazing.
Indian Ocean, South America.
Wow!
And several times, so I feel it is our duty, really, as scholars, to disseminate our work and to feed the world knowledge. And
so I want to develop this issue for a minute. So, because a lot of the people who are watching this, they don't know how academia works, and they might think, "Wow, that's so generous of you. You're giving up all the royalties you otherwise would make on the book." And in reality, you don't get paid to write these books by the publisher, right? If you would, and I won't name names. But if you published a book with one of the traditional academic publishers, they make money, but you don't get anything.
Yeah.
And on the contrary, sometimes you pay. Like I was just talking to somebody last week, and she said, I wrote an article for one of these academic publishers and included 2 photos, and I had to pay for the photos to get the permission to publish those photos.
Yeah.
So not only was she not paid, she had to pay.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional publishers have to make a profit to run things. I mean, open access for publishing is still developing slowly, but there are, and you do have to obviously support it financially, and it's supported essentially in 2 ways. If you have research grants, you can support your publication in that way, or if sometimes there are departmental funds for helping out that. But there is increasing the development of another stream of support known as Library Support Fund. So that means that libraries who have a budget to buy books, then many libraries now are agreeing to allocate a part of their budget to actually support open access publication series, rather which they would have used otherwise to buy printed books. So I mean that's how I think the future will be. But anyhow. The point being is that that's just a bit on the side, but I think
it's an important issue. I had an exchange last week with somebody from one of the big publishers, academic publishers, and she said, "Look, we can't have everything for free because people will get funding for a project and they'll make a really wonderful interface and website, and then the funding will end and the project disappears." And she said, "We've been here for 400 years publishing books. You probably know who I'm talking about just from the 400 years, but I won't say. And we're going to be here for another 400 or 500 years because we charge, and this is how we fund it. At the same time, I mean, I wrote an article, and I wanted it to be open access, and I had to pay an exorbitant amount of money after it was already published to then, I feel like it's like one of those pidyon shvuyim from the Middle Ages, where someone was kidnapped by pirates, and you would pay to ransom them away from the pirates. I had to ransom my own article to make it available to the public.
Yeah, I mean, this is a general question about what we're doing in our research, and I think that one can regard it as simply a kind of self-fulfillment. I mean, if I ask myself, why am I motivated to do what I'm doing? I mean, obviously there is a personal element to it. There's a sort of sense of self-fulfillment, of a feeling that you're very much, that's the sort of thing you want to do. It's close to your heart. And I suppose from years ago, I would just sort of assume I'm a bit strange and not many people are interested in this kind of thing.
But apparently 12,000 people are. So,
but I've learned that, in fact, it was misestimating really the general the humanity, really, because I see that there is a massive interest in scholarship, and I think it shows that there is hundreds and thousands of people in the world have not been able to have a university education, or not be able to study what they wanted to in university for a variety of reasons, but they want to. They want to get access to scholarship. And in a way, I feel that we're doing this as a really important service to humanity to do this, to disseminate, our research, important factual research. And it can only have a positive effect on So anyhow, that's the story of my open access series.
I want to thank you for making that available, because I think that's really important. My cousin wrote a book about some obscure topic in political science. It was his dissertation, I think, that was then published, and he found it online on a website. And I said to him, "Are you upset?" He said, "No, I'm not upset. I don't get any money when the book is sold, and if they pirate it, make it available." I want people to read my research ultimately, right? What did I write it for? Not just for myself, but to share it with other people. So that was really, and you're doing it in a way which doesn't involve piracy, which I absolutely love.
Yeah. So I mean, you can hack into websites and get about, but that's not really a satisfactory way of operating, really. Yeah. So anyhow, in this book, I've done two things. I've done a detailed description of the Tiberian pronunciation tradition, but also there's a second volume attached to it, which is an edition of the sections of one of the key Masoretic treatises called Hidayat al-Qari, the literary guide for the reader in Arabic. It's written in Judeo-Arabic, Arabic and Hebrew letters, which describes in detail the pronunciation of the consonants and vowels according to the Tiberian pronunciation tradition.
That's amazing. This is amazing. It's amazing because until you've made this book available, there was, I don't know if it's a handful or a couple dozen scholars in the world, is it even a couple dozen, who had both the interest and the ability to read those texts. And there are entire worlds of discussion that were going on, trying to reconstruct how did they pronounce Hebrew in 1,000 years ago. There was an entire project which is an important project, by it was inherited at least by the Academy of the Hebrew Languages, which is people would arrive in Israel and they would sit them down with a recorder and record. They'd say, okay, read a chapter of the Torah, read a chapter of Isaiah or something, read a chapter of the Mishnah. And they did that for people from all over the Jewish diaspora when they would come to Israel. And they wanted to get them early on, because 10 or 20 years into being in Israel, now your pronunciation has become assimilated to Israeli pronunciation often. And that, by the way, is available now online.